Air India Flight 855 is on a routine flight from Mumbai to Dubai. As the aircraft climbs to altitude, a sudden jolt is felt. The plane starts tilting dangerously to the left. The pilots are confused. They can't tell if the aircraft is veering right or left. The cockpit is in chaos. The aircraft is slipping out of control, and warning alarms start blaring. Time is running out for the pilots. Every second is crucial. The plane is plummeting at a terrifying rate of 10,000 feet per minute. The Arabian Sea is just seconds away, and within moments, this massive aircraft disappears from radar. How did this happen? How did a state-of-the-art aircraft crash within minutes? Was it a technical failure, a pilot error, or is there a hidden mystery behind this tragedy? This is the story of Air India Flight 855. Mumbai, January 1st, 1978, 7:30 p.m. The new year has begun, and Mumbai airport is bustling with activity. Air India Flight 855 is preparing for departure to Dubai. This flight will cover approximately 2,000 kilometers and is expected to take 3.5 hours to complete. After takeoff, the aircraft is supposed to make a right turn, as per its designated route, and then fly straight towards Dubai. But this seemingly simple turn is about to become the most dangerous moment of the night. On board are 190 passengers and 23 crew members, mostly Indian tourists. Some are traveling with their families, while others are business travelers looking for new opportunities. Their destination is Dubai, a city famous for its grand attractions, shopping, and nightlife. For this journey, a Boeing 747 is being used, one of the most advanced, largest, and most powerful aircraft of its time. It was given the name Samrat Ashoka and was inducted into Air India's fleet in 1971. This aircraft was not just a technological marvel, but also a symbol of India's aviation strength. But on this night, this mighty aircraft was heading toward a terrifying disaster. The passengers and crew had no idea that their journey, filled with hope and excitement, was about to turn into a tragic story that history would never forget. Now let's learn about the crew members, as they play a crucial role in this story. In the cockpit, Captain Madan Lal Kukar is in command of the aircraft. At 51 years old, he has over 18,000 flight hours of experience. He joined Air India in 1956. An experienced pilot, not a novice. Captain Kukar's experience was unmatched, but inside, he was fighting an invisible battle. He suffered from high blood pressure, a condition that can affect decision-making ability, and diabetes. If not properly managed, these conditions could lead to fatigue and mental fog. But the story doesn't end here. Just days before the flight, Captain Kukar's schedule had been extremely hectic. He had flown multiple back-to-back international flights, Frankfurt, London, and New York, long-haul journeys with very little rest. His body and mind were exhausted, and this fatigue was gradually taking a toll on him. He had recently passed his medical test, but was he truly ready for this flight? Sitting beside him was First Officer Indu Virmani, a 43-year-old former Indian Air Force commander who had joined Air India in 1976. With over 4,500 flight hours, he was also a highly skilled pilot. Behind them sat flight engineer Alfred Faria, a 53-year-old veteran, and one of Air India's most senior engineers, a pillar of experience in the cockpit. This was an exceptionally experienced crew, but a series of events was about to unfold that no amount of experience could fully prepare them for. At 8:01 p.m., air traffic control cleared the flight for takeoff from Mumbai airport, heading toward Dubai. About a minute after takeoff from the runway, later the plane climbed to a height of 1,500 feet. On reaching this height, the seas of Mumbai, Captain Madan Lal crossing the coastline. Kukar directed the plane to the scheduled route. According to the process of turning to the right, the initial aircraft turned correctly, and stay your position in a few moments. It seemed like everything was normal, but behind this normality, and invisible, the challenge was slowly taking shape. The weather is usually normal at this time, but because of the darkness over the sea, pilot out to determine direction, they cannot see the position of the aircraft. To learn completely about the plane, the computer had to depend on the system. This was the situation where the pilot had to experience and instruments in the cockpit. One has to depend completely on them. Most important attitude indicator is that device, which informs the pilot about the aircraft's position, gives accurate information to move forward in the story. Before we will know that attitude indicator, what happens, because this in our story, it will play an important role in the future. It is a unique device. The blue part on the screen represents the sky, while the brown part is pointing towards the ground. This little square does the nose of the plane, indicates the position when the aircraft is upright, If so, this square indicator is in the middle, remains stationary if the plane moves upwards. If so, it would move up towards square blue, is indicating that the nose of the aircraft, the number here is rising towards the sky. It appears that the aircraft, how many degrees does the nose tilt up or down? It happens when the plane goes down. The square may fall down towards brown, which indicates to the pilot that the aircraft, the nose is inclined towards the ground. When the aircraft is right, if it takes a turn towards the pink lines. Right, this small line here bends towards how many degrees is the plane tilted. Shows, and when the aircraft turns to the left, then this line bends towards the left. During or in bad weather, when the outside world, if no signal is clearly visible, then this device works like a lifeline for a pilot. It ensures that the aircraft wings remain stable and straight on this device. The confidence of the pilot is very important, because it gives them the right direction and stability, provides guidance in maintaining. This was the very challenge faced by Air India, Flight 855, aboard its Boeing 747 aircraft. There were a total of 3 attitude indicators in the cockpit. One was positioned in front of Captain Madan Lal Kukar, serving as his primary instrument for understanding the aircraft's position. The second was in front of First Officer Indu Virmani, essential for her operations. Additionally, there was a backup attitude indicator mounted in the center of the cockpit. This backup instrument was installed so that if any one of the indicators malfunctioned, both pilots could refer to it. However, on this fateful night, what was about to happen in the cockpit would put both the accuracy of the attitude indicator and the judgment of the pilots to the ultimate test. The aircraft was following its designated route correctly, and everything seemed normal, but suddenly, Captain Kukar's eyes fell on his attitude indicator. Something was wrong. With 18,000 hours of flight experience, Captain Kukar tried to make sense of the situation. In a mix of surprise and concern, he said, "What's happening?" "My indicator." This short sentence marked the beginning of a disaster that would unfold that night. The attitude indicator was showing that the aircraft was banking right, but in reality, the aircraft was perfectly level. Captain Kukar immediately attempted to correct it by turning the aircraft left to level it out. However, in reality, he had just turned a level aircraft to the left. Now, the aircraft was dangerously tilting to the left. Meanwhile, on the other side, First Officer Indu Virmani's attitude indicator was functioning correctly and was accurately showing the aircraft's left bank. This meant Captain Kukar's indicator was incorrectly displaying a right tilt. First Officer Virmani's indicator was correctly displaying a left tilt. When Captain Kukar said, "What's happening?" "My indicator." First Officer Indu Virmani did not emphasize the issue much and simply replied, "Mine looks fine too." Here, a critical misunderstanding occurred. Captain Kukar misinterpreted First Officer Virmani's response. He assumed that she was seeing the same thing as him, a right bank. First Officer Virmani, despite seeing information opposite to Captain Kukar's indicator, did not insist on the discrepancy. She assumed that the captain had everything under control. This was a fatal miscommunication. Now, the aircraft was dangerously banking to the right, and at the same time, the flight engineer, Alfredo Faria, seated just behind the captain and first officer in the cockpit, had 11,000 hours of flight experience. His position allowed him to have a clear view of the backup attitude indicator. As the situation deteriorated, Faria repeatedly warned, "Don't look at that one, Captain. Look at the middle one." He was trying to convey that the primary attitude indicator the captain was relying on was providing incorrect information. However, due to mental confusion and increasing stress, Captain Kukar failed to grasp the warning. His focus remained solely on his instrument, which was misleading him. Both the first officer's attitude indicator and the backup instrument were showing the correct information, yet the captain ignored them. In this confusion, he increased the left bank even further. The aircraft's bank angle reached 108 degrees, making it nearly inverted. Due to the extreme tilt, the nose of the aircraft dropped sharply, and its altitude began to plummet rapidly. The first officer and flight engineer did everything they could to regain control, but the aircraft was already beyond recovery. The final words from the cockpit echoed, "Straighten it! Straighten it!" But at that moment, nothing more could be done. Just 101 seconds after takeoff, less than 2 minutes into the flight, the aircraft inverted and crashed into the Arabian Sea, approximately 3 kilometers off the coast of Bandra, Mumbai. A total of 213 lives, 190 passengers and 23 crew members were lost in the silence of the sea. This became one of the deadliest air disasters in India's aviation history. Yet this tragedy could have been prevented. The flight engineer's warnings, the correct backup instrument readings, everything was available. But a combination of instrument failure, the captain's psychological state, and mounting stress ultimately led to this catastrophic event. This was not just a technical failure, it was also a tragic human error.